The fluorescent lights of the boardroom didn't just illuminate the room, they acted as a spotlight for Marcus Hale's ego. He stood at the head of the mahogany table, adjusting his $5,000 suit, his smile as sharp and synthetic as a razor blade. Ethan Cole sat in the corner, relegated to a low-profile chair usually reserved for interns. In front of them sat the C-suite executives of Miller Global, their eyes cold, their pens poised like daggers. Marcus didn't just ignore Ethan, he used him as a footstool for his own ascent. "I apologize for the amateurish layout of the preliminary data," Marcus began, his voice dripping with a condescending sweetness that made Ethan's skin crawl. He gestured vaguely toward Ethan without looking at him. "Our fixer here, Ethan, is excellent at soothing ruffled feathers, but when it comes to the high-level strategic vision this client demands, he tends to get bogged down in the dirt. I've had to rewrite 70% of his work just to make it presentable for adults." A ripple of mocking laughter went around the Marcus-aligned side of the table. Ethan felt the heat rising in his neck, but he kept his hand firmly on the leather portfolio in his lap. Inside that folder was the only copy of the original client mandate, the one Marcus had spent the last 3 months pretending didn't exist. Marcus clicked the remote, a slide appearing that inflated the project's ROI by a staggering, impossible 40%. "Ethan told me this was impossible," Marcus chuckled, looking directly at the Miller Global CEO. "But Ethan's world is small. He's the guy you send to buy flowers when a client is mad, not the guy you trust to build an empire. I've personally streamlined the communication protocols to ensure we aren't slowed down by his clicks. Let's call it administrative hesitation anymore." Ethan reached for his glass of water, his fingers steady, though Marcus's eyes flashed with a predatory glee. "Look at him," Marcus said, pausing the presentation to point a laser at the sweat on Ethan's forehead. "He looks like he's about to faint just being in the same room as a billion-dollar decision. Don't worry, Ethan. Just sit there, look helpful, and try not to break the silence with any more of your concerns about the budget. The adults are speaking." Marcus turned back to the screen, his posture radiating a sickening level of confidence. He began outlining a series of client-requested pivots that Ethan knew for a fact the client had never asked for. Marcus was lying to their faces, betting everything on the idea that Ethan was too weak to speak and the client was too busy to remember the fine print. "Marcus," Ethan said, his voice quiet but clear. The room went silent. It was the first time Ethan had spoken in 40 minutes. Marcus didn't even turn around, he just let out a weary sigh, as if a child had just interrupted a funeral. "Ethan, I thought I told you to keep the minutes and keep your mouth shut," Marcus snapped, finally turning his head, just enough to show a sneer of pure contempt. "Every time you speak, we lose 5 minutes of billable time. Does anyone here want to hear Ethan's thoughts on the font size? No? Good. Sit down." Marcus pointed a finger toward the floor, a literal gesture of a master commanding a dog. The executives looked on with bored indifference, seeing Ethan as nothing more than a malfunctioning piece of office equipment. Marcus pivoted back to the CEO, his voice regaining its oily charm. "As I was saying, the client specifically requested we bypass the safety audits to hit the Q3 launch. Ethan fought me on this, of course. He's afraid of his own shadow. He spent weeks trying to verify instructions that I had already cleared. It's that kind of low-level thinking that nearly derailed this entire partnership. If it weren't for my direct intervention, we'd be looking at a breach of contract instead of a victory lap." He leaned over the table, his face inches from the CEO's. "I've handled the client. They are in my pocket. They want exactly what is on this screen, and they want it now." Ethan's records are nothing more than the confused notes of a man who can't keep up with the big leagues. "Is that right, Marcus?" Ethan asked again, this time standing up. The motion was slow, deliberate. Marcus's face shifted from smugness to a sharp, jagged irritation. "Ethan, you are embarrassing yourself," Marcus hissed, his voice dropping to a low, threatening growl that the microphones barely caught. "Pack your bag. Get out of this room. You're fired. I'll deal with HR later, but right now, you are a distraction and a liability. Go." He turned to the security guard near the door and jerked his thumb, Get this clerk out of my sight before he costs us another million. The guard took a step forward, but Ethan didn't move. He didn't look at the guard. He looked at the CEO of Miller Global, who was starting to look slightly less bored and significantly more annoyed by the chaos. Marcus was sweating now, just a little, the first crack in his polished armor appearing as he realized Ethan wasn't slinking away in shame. I have the recorded log of the March 12th summit, Ethan said, his voice gaining a sharp, metallic edge. Marcus let out a forced, high-pitched laugh. The March 12th summit? You mean the one where you forgot to hit record and cried in the bathroom? Please, my notes are the only official record. Now leave. The security guard's heavy hand landed on Ethan's shoulder, a physical punctuation mark to Marcus's arrogance. Marcus leaned back against the mahogany table, crossing his arms with a look of supreme, sickening victory. Take him out, Marcus commanded, his voice ringing with the authority of a man who thought he'd already won the war. He's clearly having some sort of mental break. The pressure of a real boardroom was always too much for a glorified assistant. The CEO of Miller Global shook his head, looking at Ethan with a mixture of pity and disgust. Is this the best your firm has to offer, Marcus? A scene like this? Marcus didn't miss a beat. He's a fluke, sir. A hiring mistake I've been trying to rectify for months. He's obsessed with records, because he can't handle the dynamic nature of high-level strategy. Please ignore the child. Ethan didn't struggle against the guard's grip. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, sleek black remote. He didn't look at Marcus. He looked at the primary display screen. The March 12th summit wasn't just a meeting, Marcus, Ethan said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming cold and precise. It was a contractually binding clarification session, and while you were busy translating their intent into lies that served your bonus, I was maintaining the client-side mirror log. With a single click, the ROI slide Marcus had been so proud of flickered and died. In its place appeared a raw, unedited video feed. Marcus's face instantly drained of color, shifting from a triumphant smugness to a sharp, jagged irritation. What is this? Turn that off. That's a breach of security. Marcus screamed, lunging for the laptop. The Miller Global CEO held up a hand, his eyes locked on the screen. Sit down, Marcus. The CEO barked. The power dynamic in the room shifted so violently it felt like a physical gust of wind. Marcus froze, his hand hovering inches from the keyboard, his face twitching. On the screen, the Miller Global CFO's voice was crystal clear. We cannot, under any circumstances, bypass the safety audits. If you skip them, the deal is dead. The video then showed Marcus, his face oily with a fake smile, nodding and saying, Understood. Ethan here will personally oversee the 6-week audit process. We won't cut a single corner. The room went deathly silent. Every executive turned to look at the slide Marcus had just presented, the one that claimed the client had requested the bypass. Marcus's irritation turned into a frantic, stuttering defensiveness. That's out of context. That was an early draft of the discussion, he hissed, his eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. He looked at the executives, trying to find a friendly face, but he found only ice. Ethan is manipulating the footage. He's a tech handler. He can deepfake anything. Sir, you can't trust a man who's been bitter about his salary for 3 years. Marcus stepped toward the CEO, his hands trembling as he tried to regain his footing. I have the real final summary in my emails. Ethan is just trying to burn the house down because he knows he's finished. Ethan clicked the remote again. A second window opened on the screen. It was a screen recording of Marcus's private project folder from 3 hours ago. The room watched in real time as a cursor, Marcus's cursor, dragged a file labeled Original Client Mandate Safety First PDF into the trash, and then emptied it. You're right, Marcus, Ethan said, his voice cutting through Marcus's stuttering like a hot wire through wax. I am a tech handler, which is why I set up a real-time backup for the project server the moment I realized you were planning to commit fraud. You didn't delete the record. You just deleted your own career. Marcus let out a sound that wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a scream. It was a high-pitched, desperate wheeze. He grabbed the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. "This is a setup. You've been plotting this," he shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at Ethan. "You've been sitting in that corner like a parasite, waiting for a moment to twist the truth." The CEO stood up, his chair screeching against the floor, a sound that made Marcus flinch as if he'd been struck. "The only one twisting the truth is you, Marcus," the CEO said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "You stood there and told me I asked for a safety bypass. You tried to frame me for a regulatory disaster to cover your own inflated ROI. Marcus's posture began to crumble. He wasn't the client director anymore. He was a man standing in a storm with no coat. "Sir, please, it was a misunderstanding of the terminology. I was trying to protect the timeline." Ethan, tell them how hard I worked on this." Marcus turned to Ethan, his eyes wide and bloodshot, a pathetic plea for help from the man he had just tried to have dragged out by security. Ethan didn't give him a shred of comfort. He didn't even give him a frown. Ethan just looked at Marcus with the bored expression of someone watching a bug hit a windshield. "You didn't work on the project, Marcus," Ethan said. "You worked on the lie, and you're not even good at that." The defensive stage was over. Marcus was now visibly vibrating with a growing, nauseating panic. The sweat wasn't just on his forehead anymore, it was soaking through his expensive shirt, making the fabric cling to his chest. He looked at the security guard, who was now looking at the CEO for instructions, completely ignoring Marcus's earlier command. I can fix this," Marcus whispered, his voice cracking. "We can realign, we can adjust the slides. Ethan, give me the remote. Let's talk about this privately." He reached out a hand, his fingers twitching, desperate to grab the little black device that had just dismantled his entire life. Ethan didn't step back, he merely tilted the remote out of Marcus's reach, watching the man stumble like a drunkard grasping for a lamppost. "Don't touch me, Marcus. You're already covered in enough filth today," Ethan said, his voice slicing through the room's tension. He didn't wait for Marcus to recover. He clicked the remote again. A spreadsheet flashed onto the screen, glowing with rows of angry red numbers. "You spent 20 minutes earlier telling everyone I was expensive to keep around. Let's look at the real expenses." Ethan zoomed in on a series of wire transfers labeled Client Relationship Optimization. $50,000 moved from the project contingency fund to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands, authorized by Marcus Hale. Reason: emergency client gift tiers. But here's the funny part. Ethan clicked a sub-tab. A photo appeared on the screen. A high-resolution shot of Marcus sitting on the deck of a yacht in Tuscany, holding a glass of vintage crystal, surrounded by 3 people who were definitely not Miller Global clients. The date of the emergency gift matches Marcus's sick leave last October. Marcus is the client of 40-foot catamaran named the Golden Ego, because that's where the money went. The Miller Global CEO's face went from pale to a deep, bruised purple. He looked at Marcus as if he were a cockroach that had just crawled out of a gourmet steak. Marcus's knees actually buckled. He hit the carpet with a dull thud, his hands frantically clawing at the edge of the mahogany table to pull himself back up. It was a business development retreat. I was networking. I was bringing in new leads." Marcus screamed, his voice hitting a pathetic, glass-shattering register. He looked at the other executives, his eyes bulging. "You all do it. You've all taken perks. Why are you looking at me like this?" "Because we don't forge the signatures of our juniors to cover the trail, Marcus," Ethan said, his tone dripping with mock disappointment. He clicked again. A document appeared, an expense report where Ethan's signature had been crudely digitally pasted over Marcus's. "You didn't just steal from the client. You tried to make me the fall guy for your embezzlement. You called me a clerk and a fixer. I guess I'm finally fixing the one thing you couldn't hide: your own greed." Marcus was now in the desperate phase. He crawled toward the CEO, literally on his knees, his expensive suit trousers gathering dust from the floor. "Sir, please, the project is still viable. I can still close the deal. Miller Global needs my charisma. Ethan is a robot. He has no soul. He can't talk to people. He'll ruin the relationship." Marcus reached for the CEO's shoe, but the CEO stepped back with a look of pure physical revulsion. The only thing Ethan is ruining today, Marcus, is your life, and I'm enjoying every second of it, the CEO hissed. Ethan checked his watch. Actually, Marcus, regarding that relationship you're so worried about, Ethan leaned over the laptop and unmuted a hidden Zoom window that had been minimized the entire time. A wall of faces appeared on the giant boardroom screen. It was the entire board of directors of the client company, Miller Global's biggest account. They weren't just watching, they were recording. The chairman of the client company sat front and center, his jaw set in a line of absolute grandeur. Marcus, the chairman's voice boomed through the high-end boardroom speakers, sounding like the voice of a vengeful god. I've heard you call me an oblivious checkbook 3 times in the last 10 minutes of your private audio logs. Ethan shared with us. I've watched you mock our safety protocols, and I've just seen you use our project funds to buy a boat. The chairman paused, his eyes narrowing. The contract is over, but before we sue your firm into the prehistoric age, I want to see you escorted out of that building in handcuffs. Ethan, thank you for the transparency. You're the only person in that room with a shred of integrity. Marcus let out a sound that wasn't human, a low guttural wail of a man who had just realized there was no exit, no lie, and no translation that could save him. He collapsed entirely now, lying flat on the carpet, his face pressed against the expensive fibers. He was shaking, a rhythmic, pathetic tremor that made his jacket bounce. He was humiliated. He wasn't a director anymore. He was a piece of trash waiting to be swept up. But wait, there's one more thing, Ethan said, his voice cheerful, almost predatory. He looked down at the shivering wreck on the floor. Marcus, remember that new success policy you made everyone sign last month? The one about total radical transparency? Ethan pointed to a small red light on the wall, right under the company logo. You insisted that every high-level meeting be live-streamed to the company's internal inspiration channel, so the juniors could learn from the masters. You forgot to turn it off, Marcus. The entire firm, all 600 people in this building, just watched you beg for your life on your knees. Marcus's head snapped up. His eyes darted to the camera, then to the screen where a scrolling chat box from the internal company feed was moving so fast it was a blur of text. Let's go, Ethan. Look at him. Crawl.
Marcus is a thief.
Is he actually crying? Marcus looked back at Ethan, his mouth hanging open, a string of saliva trailing from his lip. He was silenced. He tried to speak, but only a dry, clicking sound came out of his throat. He looked at the door, then at the camera, then back at the floor. There was nowhere to go. The absolute power Marcus had wielded like a club for years had been turned into a noose, and Ethan was the one holding the rope. Marcus tried to push himself up, his hands slipping on the polished mahogany floor. His $800 silk tie was now dipped in a spilled cup of lukewarm coffee, a dark, jagged stain spreading across his chest like a symbol of his ruined reputation. I built this department, Marcus croaked, his voice sounding like dry leaves being crushed under a boot. You can't do this. I have an ironclad severance agreement. If you fire me, I walk away with $5 million. You're just a minion, Ethan. You'll still be eating ramen in your cubicle while I'm sipping gin on my yacht. You haven't won. You've just made a very expensive mistake. Ethan didn't laugh. He didn't even smile with warmth. He just reached into his leather portfolio and pulled out a single sheet of paper, the very paper Marcus had forced every employee to sign during the ethics and compliance workshop. Marcus himself had designed to trap whistleblowers, paragraph 14. Marcus, I believe you called it the loyalty clause when you were shouting at the juniors last month, Ethan said, his voice slicing through Marcus's remaining delusions. In the event of proven financial malfeasance, embezzlement or intentional digital fraud, all severance, bonuses and stock options are immediately forfeited and converted into a legal defense fund for the company. You wrote this, Marcus. You signed it first to set an example. Congratulations. You just paid for the company's lawyers to sue you into bankruptcy. Marcus's jaw dropped, a single string of saliva trailing from his lip as the reality of his own trap hit him. He looked at the paper, then at the CEO, who was currently nodding to a group of men in dark suits who had just entered the room. These weren't HR representatives. They were internal affairs investigators, followed closely by two uniformed officers. The room felt smaller, the air thicker with the scent of Marcus's panic. The client director was now just a man sitting in a puddle of his own making. "He's all yours," the CEO said, his voice cold as liquid nitrogen, not even glancing at Marcus as the officers approached. "The evidence of the wire transfers to the Golden Ego has already been forwarded to the district attorney, along with the high-definition recording of him attempting to destroy company records 3 hours ago." Marcus tried to scramble backward, his heels kicking against the floor, but the security guard he had mocked earlier stepped forward and gripped his shoulder with a hand like a vice. "Wait, Ethan, tell them. It was a joke, a stress test for the security team." Marcus shrieked, his voice hitting a pathetic glass-shattering register. He reached out a trembling hand, his fingers brushing against Ethan's polished shoes, leaving a desperate smudge of sweat on the leather. Ethan didn't flinch. He simply stepped back, looking down at Marcus with the clinical, detached interest of a scientist, watching a biological specimen expire. "You're not a master of the board anymore, Marcus. You're just a file number, a cautionary tale for the interns you used to humiliate for sport." The officers didn't offer Marcus the dignity of standing up. They hauled him to his feet like a bag of wet trash, the metal of the handcuffs clicking shut with a finality that seemed to echo through the entire building. Marcus's face was a map of total psychological collapse. His eyes were bloodshot and bulging, his skin a sickly, mottled grey. He looked at the giant screen one last time, seeing his own broken, handcuffed image still being broadcast to the entire firm. 600 people were watching him being led out in disgrace from the very room where he had thought he was a god. The internal chat was a hurricane of mockery, a digital roar of "goodbye Marcus" and "justice for Ethan" that he could see from the corner of his eye. "Any last words for the clerk?" Ethan asked, leaning in close as the officers began to drag Marcus toward the exit. Marcus opened his mouth to scream, to curse, to spit a final insult, but his throat had completely failed him. He was silent. No words came out, only a high, thin wheeze of a man who had finally, utterly run out of lies. He looked at Ethan, and for the first time in 10 years, he saw Ethan not as a tool or a footstool, but as the person who had just erased his existence with a single click of a remote. The security guard jerked Marcus toward the door, his expensive loafers dragging uselessly against the carpet, making a rhythmic, pathetic scuffing sound. Marcus turned his head back one last time, his face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated humiliation. He saw Ethan Cole calmly take the seat at the head of the table, Marcus's seat. Ethan didn't look back. He didn't offer a final wave. He simply picked up the presentation remote and looked at the CEO. "Now," Ethan said, his voice booming with a new, terrifying authority, "let's talk about the real ROI for Q." The heavy oak doors slammed shut behind Marcus, the sound of the lock clicking into place being the last thing he ever heard inside that building. His face, frozen in a silent, wide-eyed scream of desperation, remained on the internal live stream for 3 more seconds, a final lingering image of a fallen tyrant, before the feed cut to black, leaving him in the cold, silent hallway of his own ruin.
Watching Marcus faceplant on the same carpet he tried to have Ethan dragged across is the kind of petty justice that keeps me warm at night. Was it a genius move to live stream his downfall to the whole company, or is Ethan just as cold-blooded as the man he replaced? I actually spent way too much time looking up corporate embezzlement loopholes just to make sure Marcus's own loyalty clause would be the specific rope that legally strangled him. There's just nothing better than a narcissist paying for his own funeral.